Good morning. Welcome to the Mrs. R Relevant Daily Draft Podcast brought to you by the Draft Professor. Here with Jake on a Sunday morning. And today, Jake and I are going to be diving into four quarterbacks that are likely in the 2026 NFL Draft. But before we dive into the quarterbacks, Jake, it's been a few weeks since I've seen you. It's good to have you back on a podcast. How you doing?
I'm great. Yeah, October was a bit of a whirlwind, traveling, doing a bunch of things. Glad to be back on. Just as the weather's turning, at least where I'm at, with all the snow now. So, but yeah, excited to talk about these QBs because I think it's one of those fascinating QB classes where I feel like everybody's going to have their favorite. I know we're talking about one guy today where some people are a little bit like torn on whether he should declare or not. Like, I think that's what's kind of fascinating about this QB position. And also because, as we might get to, like, the teams that need QBs are going to be very interesting as we get to the offseason.
Yeah, and we may even dive into some of the QB needs tonight. As Jake and I are live, this is being done on Sunday, November 9th. So there's still about 4 weeks of college football left and about half the NFL season left. So the players that we're going to talk about, and I didn't have all of my mouse clicks done ahead of time, so give me a minute. So we're going to talk about Cole Payton from North Dakota State, Dante Moore from Oregon, Ty Simpson from Georgia, and then close it out with Fernando Mendoza from Indiana. In my opinion, I was the one that picked the quarterbacks. These are the four names everybody's talking about at the top. And when I say everyone, a lot of my everyone is draft professors with a little bit of noise mixed in from my Twitter feed. But I am really curious, Jake, what you have on Cole Payton.
Yeah, so this is probably the most fascinating of the four, right? Because he's played running back. He's done he's I think when you watch him, you see him growing and progressing pretty rapidly for somebody who is still kind of, I think, figuring out the quarterback position. I know there's a lot of love for him in the Draft Professor chat that I see very, very often. For him, I think I would point to the South Dakota State game where it felt like operationally Payton looked a lot better. And the timing of throws, the rhythm, everything was not necessarily an anticipatory throw, but it was kind of almost one of those where it was still in rhythm and on time, where you want to see him continue to take steps forward operationally within an offense. That's what you wanted to see. And better accuracy, made some plays on the move. He made a nice layered touch throw over the middle of the field in that game that I think a lot of people have shared. For me, I think those are the steps he needs to continue to be taking at the QB position, because there are a lot of times where he feels like the post-snap operation is very much one read and then run because he's such a great athlete, right? He is got the kind of, Josh Allen, Newton, right, Richardson, these massive builds at the QB position where he could be a Taysom Hill and run somebody over as doing a tush push, or you're just, in the QB run game itself. Like he is willing to take on linebackers or anybody at the point of attack and run. So he still has that, I think, ingrained into his process of, like, I can take off because it will be hard for people to tackle me in the open space because I'm a great athlete and because I'm a powerful player as well. So I do think there is still stuff to work on with Payton in terms of the post-snap operation, right? Cycling through reads, right? Having sort of poise and not feeling like you are not necessarily in a panicky state, but in more of an urgent rush state in terms of the footwork and the eyes and all of that when that post-snap operation occurs. So it does feel like he still needs to grow in those areas. And obviously, the FCS, they have more playoff games, right, than the FBS does. So he has more games to continue to progress as well. But I do see some things where, he's maneuvering the pocket because he's a good athlete. You don't see him reset a lot. He tries to make throws on the run. Some of that and some of the accuracy suffers with that. intermediate, down the field. You've seen a little bit of wild misses. So I do think he is still, to me, someone who has to be stashed. If he's in this draft class, I think you have to stash him. I think it'd be perfect if he were to go to a team that would be patient. Unfortunately, we don't see a lot of that in the league, other than maybe the team that I am a fan of, the Packers. They seem to be exceedingly patient with these guys, but it does seem like he has a lot of tools that are really exciting, right? You maybe if a team is willing to be patient and still get him on the field as like an athlete, like a Taysom Hill, right? All of this stuff, like that is interesting if teams are willing to go down the 2 QB path, right, at an offense, which we haven't seen in the league yet, but we have seen in college, right? Washington State did it with Ward and Mateer, but I don't know if I'd be willing to kind of say like, all right, yeah, I'm a team with a need in the first round. I'm going to be picking him because it feels like he needs still a couple years on the development track. And the good news for a team that would be willing to take a player like Cole Payton is you're already seeing these steps get better and better as the weeks goes on. Now, of course, it would be awesome to see him play against an SEC defense or Big Ten defense. They don't have that luxury, but what you can still glean from the FCS games is, okay, is he playing more on time, right? Can he get to the rhythm of the first read, which I think, again, I kind of mentioned already, that South Dakota State game, it looked a lot better. And if you can see more of that, I think that excites you as a team looking for a QB. But yeah, okay, what happens when a team's doing rotations post-snap? Can he adjust on the fly? Is he still somebody who's going to take off, right? It can, as I mentioned, like he's got, the fastball. Can he layer the throws consistently more and more as the season goes on? I think that is what's going to be really fascinating. To me, as I said, I don't think I'd be willing to spend first-round capital on a player like Payton right now. He feels like more of the, wow, yeah, let's take him in late second, third round, right? Okay, we've got a veteran, right? Not to throw out a team, but if the Rams still want to go forward with Stafford next year, maybe this is the perfect player of like, okay, we can stash him. He learns from a great quarterback right now, and in a couple seasons, we'll be good to go down the line. Like there are other teams that obviously you could potentially do that with, Miami, maybe one, another, because I don't know if they're going to get out of the Tua contract this offseason, but they may be able to do it in a season or two. And so that I feel like is more of where his destination should be. I don't really want to trot him out there week one in the NFL in 2026, but I think what's exciting about him is sort of that growth and development track.
Good morning, Marcus. How are you?
Good. Can you hear me? My bad, dude.
Oh, yeah. We're all good. Good. It's early on a Sunday morning.
Yeah, my bad. Apologies.
Oh, that's all right, Marcus. So, Marcus, what did you have on Cole Payton?
My thoughts on Cole Payton were very interesting. Just because just seeing his size, movement skills, arm talent, and then how he ran the North Dakota offense was just very interesting to watch because, it had a couple questions. I'm like, why did, the Raiders, I'm a Raiders fan, and, I cover the Raiders. I was trying to figure out why Cam Miller was playing so long when I was watching this film. First of all, like it's just super interesting that he ran for 700 yards as a sophomore, I believe, just coming in the game and just running the football. And nobody came to get him. He's just been sitting in North Dakota, just relaxing, I guess. And he's been playing so well this year, and just his tools and his talent and everything he can do. Like he anticipates, he runs that offense really well. He throws with anticipation in the middle of the field. You could maybe get into he doesn't throw the ball a lot, right? So we don't know the volume of it. If the volume had to tick up a little bit, does he start making more mistakes? Like he has the last couple of games that he's played, he's made some interceptions and things like that, if that would keep happening. But it's just so intriguing, his talent level, that I feel like he's a guy that it's definitely might surprise some people when we get to closer to, March and April, where he just starts rising a little bit, because he might go to the Senior Bowl, have a good week. He might go, and he might run like a 40 or something, the meetings, everything that he has. And then the film that he's putting together, it might just add up to him being a secret riser, in my opinion.
Yeah, so a couple questions for you guys. Do you see an NFL arm, Jake?
Yeah, I think there's enough there for sure. When you look at the vertical shots and a lot of the, even the deeper intermediate stuff, you definitely see enough of an NFL arm where I think he is consistently getting better is kind of what I highlighted a little earlier of like these middle field throws where he's starting to layer them a bit more and throw them around defenders. Like that to me is, I think, just more indicative of like, okay, this can translate. We're going in the right direction here rather than like, wow, yeah, he can throw this like really fast, but like it's all over the place type of thing. So it feels like he is, as the season's going on, I think you just see a player who's more comfortable and has, sufficient either whatever you want to call it, arm talent or arm strength. Like I think it's plenty enough, for this league.
And Marcus, did you think Cole Payton had an NFL arm?
Yeah, I do. I think of he has an NFL arm. I think is it like one of the biggest arms in the world? No, but I think one thing that I noticed is I think he can change speeds of his throws a little bit. So he can put some touch on some balls. So some balls might like come out a little bit, what I would say, with less velocity than others. But I think he's changing speeds a little bit because, especially against South Dakota State, you saw some really throws where you really saw the arm talent that he has getting hits a little bit and making some of the throws. I mean, he had one against North Dakota State where he got hit and he was still able to get that ball out there about 25 yards, almost like on an over route, off of I think it was play action. Don't want to quote it exactly at the play, but on that throw, you saw a lot of the arm talent there. I think there's a lot of changing speeds too, a little bit, adding some touch. So it kind of reminds me of like CJ Stroud's arm. CJ Stroud doesn't have the hugest arm coming out, but also Stroud, what he does is he changes speed with a lot of his touch throws. And sometimes when he really needs to put something on it, he can get it on there. And I think that's what you see from Cole Payton a little bit, but that's why, I know he's probably going to get a Senior Bowl invite. It's going to happen. That's why I want to see him at the Senior Bowl. That's the one guy I want to see that arm live and see how it really moves.
So I will second that. So I was waiting for the whole Senior Bowl segment of Cole Payton to come up because he's at a lower level of competition. I think he will be the talk of the Senior Bowl. If he gets the invite to the Senior Bowl, he'll be the talk of Mobile. And even if it's the Shrine Bowl, there's a chance that more people would go to the Shrine Bowl, like people like us, to watch Cole Payton than go to Mobile, kind of thing. So, any other commentary on Cole Payton, or do we want to move to the next player?
I think I have one more thing that I want to bring up is I think another thing, right, pre-snap, what you want to see a QB do is identify a lot of what's going on, right? What's a defense showing, right? Who's coming on blitz? Like, how do you have to adjust things? And you're starting to see him pick that up as well. There are, it's still flashes, right? It's not like consistently happening all the time, but you see him making adjustments at the line, right? Pre-snap, hey, protection's got to be fixed here. Or like you're seeing that more and more from him, and that's what I think is so fascinating about this is the game-to-game improvements that you're seeing, where it's like, okay, maybe this is a down game accuracy-wise just a little bit versus the other, but pre-snap operation looks better. Sometimes the post-snap operation looks better, and it's just so he's taking all of the right steps to get to a point where we're going to be, as you kind of mentioned, Jim, like we're going to be talking about him, whether he goes to the Shrine or the Senior Bowl. Like he is going to be fascinating because with a lot of these top QBs, right, no guarantees they're showing up. So, who is next on the list of like guys you're fascinated to see? And I think Peyton's probably honestly going to draw a little bit more than someone like a Klubnik or a Nussmeier, simply because we've seen so much of them. And as Peyton, right, we're not maybe always paying attention to the FCS level and coming out like, oh, wow, okay. Then people start seeing the highlights of him, and that's how all of this starts to build for someone like Peyton as the process begins.
And I think the media likes a shiny new toy.
For sure.
You're going to chase the media is going to chase the shiny object. If Cole Payton's new, because I would also still love to see Klubnik and Nussmeier and a few others in Mobile as well.
Definitely.
Just to further along their evaluation. Marcus, any other thoughts on Cole Payton?
I do think he is a guy when I think more people start to dive into his film. I think a lot of people just haven't started diving into it yet. That we're going to see a lot more people start to get on this train a little bit. I think, especially like some of the film people I know. I think they're going to really like this guy just because a lot of the things he can do, and that's why I think he's going to be a riser. It's once everybody starts diving into it, and then maybe if like he goes to Senior Bowl, he gets everybody's attention. And then everybody starts diving into it. I think more people are going to like what he can do because, like Jake was pointing out, I think he runs an NFL offense. They make NFL throws all day in this offense. It's really not a lot of college type of plays. And so you really get a good idea of what he can do. And I think that's why I feel like he's somebody that might surprise everybody where he ends up going at the end of the day.
Yep. So this is the second time that the draft professor has covered Cole Payton. A couple of pieces of information. If you need all 22 on Cole Payton, I was told that Dalton Miller has 5 games. Draft professor Anthony Russo said he requested 4 of the games, so you can thank Anthony later.
Okay.
But there is some game film available from Dalton Miller specifically on Cole Payton.
Mm-hmm.
So the next player, no guarantee Dante Moore is in this draft class. He does have another year of eligibility. My comment that I was literally making during the game yesterday is that if you're going to be drafted in the top 3, don't go back to school. You've got too much to lose and very little to gain. But Marcus, what do you think of Dante Moore?
Dante Moore is very interesting because I don't know if he is going to be a for sure top 3 guy. I think he is, to me, is more of like a field general. Like he doesn't have a big arm. It's not something that really explodes off the tape for me. And I think when you don't see Oregon throw downfield a lot because of that, it feels like that. I mean, he's more of a point guard type of quarterback. Now he has a lot of athletic ability. He can run like zone reads. He can make plays with his legs, and I think that's the biggest difference that he has. As a playmaker, I would say. But I feel like he's such a field general. He kind of reminds me of. He kind of has a little bit of a Bo Nix element to how he runs his Oregon offense. Where I thought, which even when you talk about like Dylan Gabriel and how he ran it the year before, because I mean we basically have these 3 quarterbacks that we've seen get into the NFL all run this offense like back to back to back, and we kind of get an idea of how they ran it. Always felt like Gabriel was the most aggressive out of all 3 of them, and or how maybe Dan Lanning wanted to run the offense with them. But that's why, him going so high, and I know there's a lot of buzz with him. I don't know how much, out throughout the process he would actually end up there, just because I think just the arm talent overall just isn't the greatest in the world, but he is just such a field general that he runs the offense so well, gets rid of the ball really quickly, great release, very accurate quarterback. He's going to be able to run a lot of those quick passing NFL offenses. A lot of those West Coast. He's really scheme specific there. Like if he went to a West Coast offense type of operation where they're getting the ball out of his hands quick, they run a lot of stick concepts, a lot of slants, a lot of choice routes. He can really execute that. It's just when you want to get to the point where you guys start pushing the ball downfield consistently, which I think in today's NFL, and you really see like how the Seahawks are really playing. I mean, they're doing 12 personnel and just throwing downfield. I mean, basically what they're doing right now, and they're really dominating on offense. It's hard for me to see how he can run an offense like that when I watch him. But he is a good quarterback. It's one of those things for me where it's like, if you want a field general that can make things happen and move the football a little bit and move the chains, that's the type of guy you want. But is he really that much of an explosive player? Is where I would push back on a little bit.
Jake, how about you on Dante Moore? Do you see him the same, or do you see him a little bit differently?
I think maybe differently in just terms of the eval from what I've seen so far, but like not quite in terms of. I think we see him pretty similarly of like where he might go, just because I do think like again when the operation's clean, like Moore will absolutely deal. Like there's no question. I think honestly to all levels of the field, I think Oregon State he was in Oklahoma State he's just carving him up like back shoulder throws, corner routes that are pinpoint, and you know you get to the Northwestern game and he's ripping the seam, he's ripping comebacks, he's that throw he made on the run where he's has to put all of it into his core and to rotate, like that stuff is awesome. And so like. And obviously, just yesterday, right, the Iowa game, the throw where it's like it's like he threw into like the half size of a tire, basically, like on that throw where it's just like there is nowhere to throw this football, and he's like, no, there is right here. I got this. And so when he makes those type of like nails throws, intermediate and down the field, like it gets you out of your seat, and I think that's what's super exciting. And yeah, I think Oregon should absolutely be giving him more opportunities to run because I do think he is a tremendous athlete as well. I do think the one thing with Moore is a little bit of like beyond first and a little bit maybe more beyond second read where it feels like the picture can muddy a little bit. And I think he is still somebody who, we were waiting for this moment. We were waiting for him to be kind of that full-time starter of like take over on a team that, isn't UCLA and wasn't doing him any favors 2 years ago. And so I do think there is still like a level of like I would love to see another year of starting under his belt where it feels like all of the post snap, because I do think pre snap he's also in a really good spot of like how he can control things and what he is seeing, because very often he is seeing the right thing pre snap because that first read is going to be there and he knows that and he is on time, accurate, and putting the ball where it needs to be on a lot of those. I think the question is when you get to like. Yes, and I know the Iowa game yesterday, he didn't have Sadiq, doesn't have his excellent freshman receiver, but like sometimes you want to see what you have in those spots, and he delivered when he needed to. But I do think when the picture cloudy's a little bit post-snap, and I feel that way kind of a lot about these QBs for the most part. We'll get into another one that I kind of feel the same way about too, but that's where I feel like another year of starting would benefit him more so because I guess other than maybe if and I know, Jim, we were talking about this just before Marcus hopped on of like, if somebody's patient with him for a year, right? If the Dolphins draft him and are patient and say, no, we're going to sit you behind Tua for a year, which I don't think they're going to do because that's just not how these teams operate, that I think would be beneficial to him. And I think he would see, okay, like, how, as many faults as Tua has, like pre-snap, quick release, on time, all that stuff I think he can benefit from because I do think sometimes when you watch some of the quick passing game, like it's accurate, it's on time, but sometimes like the mechanics change and it feels like he's delivering a little slower and he looks like he's almost trying to aim it more on some of the short throws rather than like when you watch him rip the intermediate to the deep stuff, it's kind of like, no, this feels natural. We are like, he feels like a shortstop deep in the hole where it's like, I can make this throw. This is no problem. I've done this a million times in my backyard. And so that to me is, I think, maybe a more interesting part of like, okay, can the quick passing game be precise where he feels like he isn't in a mode of like needing to be kind of, as Marcus was saying, like the point guard where he just feels comfortable more ripping those throws because, and not too fast or anything that's like where Brett Favre breaks, the fingers of his receivers or anything, but it feels like he's a little more comfortable in that regard and comfortable navigating and moving around the pocket, making the subtle adjustments, all of that. So that's where I would like say, I mean, yeah, as you mentioned, Jim, if he's going to be picked top 3, like, great. Like, yeah, absolutely. If you think you're going top 3, you absolutely declare yes because of, what could happen in a year or two. But I think he's in a good spot, though, if he were not to, with Lanning, with, obviously a stud receiver who's not going anywhere, right? He's freshman. I think that operation is still going to be conducive to his success. So I could see it go either way. You could convince me of it either way with Moore because I think we've seen a lot of like, okay, if I'm taking anybody in this class as like a intermediate deep ball like accuracy guy, this is actually the guy I'm taking, I think, over everybody because I think he is just so natural at ripping those throws. But I do think post-snap, pocket navigation, I think that's all the stuff that he could absolutely take to the next level with another year of starting for Oregon.
Yeah, so here's a couple questions. So I forgot to ask it on Cole Payton, but we have to create a Jackson Dart line, right? So
Sure.
Marcus, and I'm glad that made you laugh. Like I saw you smile when I said that. So Marcus, like Cole Payton, Jackson Dart, which one do you think is a better prospect to you at this stage of the process?
Are we not including how Dart looks in the NFL? Are we just going straight to that?
No, I'm asking to compare them as prospects.
Okay. I just want to make sure. Because I wasn't a big fan of Dart coming out. I wasn't a fan. So I would take both of these guys over Jackson Dart.
Yep.
Just because Dart's showing a lot in the NFL more than I really thought, and that's some of the stuff with times of quarterbacks is intangibles. Like I can't meet the guy and see him in the room, which is just the biggest thing with quarterbacks. I mean, the biggest factor with quarterbacks is they're intangible. They're the leader. They're the general, right? And sometimes I think that's when we miss as film guys outside of that room is we miss that intangible of getting to know that guy and understanding what he brings to the table from that mindset. But as like a prospect and how they're playing right now on film, I would definitely take these guys over Jackson Dart.
And how about you, Jake?
Yeah, definitely more over Dart. Yeah, that's it, and that really is the tricky part. Is like, we're not in those combine meetings where they're asking the QBs like, hey, if you get this look, and we're running this, like, where's your second read? Like, how quickly do you need to get to this, right? Like, all of that stuff of like, oh yeah, if they're disguising this and they rotate the safeties, where are you going? Like all of that stuff where if guys are like absolutely on it, where it's like if you're not like in deep looking at the studies and we don't obviously have their playbook either as well. Like we don't have Oregon's playbook necessarily. We don't have Indiana's. Like we're kind of guessing and doing our best job to guess of like where he needs to be going and where he should be going, like all of that. And so that's what makes it super tricky about this. As far as the question for like Dart versus Payton, that's tight. I would probably lead Dart just a little bit because of the competition and because of like where Dart was and his development track. Like again, I wasn't the biggest fan either necessarily of Dart because of how the offense looked and what he was asked. But I think where it is now, I think I would lean Dart slightly because I do think Payton has these kind of steps that but he certainly is starting to take them, which I think is really promising.
Yep. And I mean, I remember seeing a comment that Jackson Dart is Bo Nix. So Jackson Dart came in, he's hit his ceiling, and this is as good as Dart is going to be. But we shall see.
Never know.
Yeah.
Any more conversations on Jackson Dart, or we want to flip to Ty Simpson?
We can flip to Ty Simpson.
Okay. So Ty Simpson from Alabama. This was not a quarterback that was on the summer scouting radar. I know, Marcus, the first time that you and I podcasted together, you came in and you did I think we did 5 quarterbacks that day.
Mm-hmm.
Ty Simpson wasn't even on that list of 30. So we did like 6 podcasts of 5 quarterbacks each. Ty Simpson didn't even make that list of 30. But where are you on Ty Simpson now, Marcus?
I'm really high on Ty Simpson. Ty Simpson has really good film. What scares me about Ty Simpson is the starts, which kind of scares me a little bit about Dante Moore too. It's the starts, like it's kind of like I've been here before, where you kind of see this guy play really well, like for 1 year, and then sometimes you have these guys who play like how he's playing, and then like the next year in college football, they don't look good anymore. Right. And that's just kind of scares me about him, but his film is really good. Like he handles pressure really well. He's quick decision making. Like he sees things, I was watching the Missouri game and he was seeing those cover 2, but they would show one look and he would see the cover 2 super quick. And then he's hitting that hole as soon as he hits the back of his drop. Pressure doesn't bother him too much. He does a good job of avoiding pressure and making throws. He makes throws on the run. He can throw to every level of the field with good velocity. He's another guy who could change speeds on his throw. He's good mechanics. There's a lot to like about him. And we can talk about his size a little bit. I didn't realize he was at they have him listed at 6'2". I've seen Dan Brugler have him 6'1", but I don't know who the Alabama running back is. But the Alabama running back looked like he was about 6'7", sitting next to him. So, we'll figure out his size later on. That's something we're going to find out because a lot of these teams they try to push up their players. They're going to say whatever they want to say, and some of these guys know because they get measured in the summer. But I doubt that people even know who he was at this point. I doubt he got measured. To see what about his draft prospects. So he scares me from the start perspective, because is he Zach Wilson? Is he I don't go like Mac Jones. I mean, he's a better prospect than Mac Jones already in my head, but Mac Jones had that 1 year wonder type of thing and ended up going first round. And Mac Jones is playing pretty good as a backup right now, but he's a backup after about 5 or 6 years. So, those are the little bit of concerns that I have with Ty Simpson are more not really film based, I would say. If I would call some things out on film, I think sometimes that he doesn't take what the defense gives him sometimes. I think sometimes he does a little bit big play hunting. You saw it last night on the throw to LSU where he made that big throw to I think set up a touchdown, which he made an awesome throw after that. He took a little while to get to that. That was about 5 seconds of him waiting for that to clear and him stepping up. I call that big play hunting. You really can't do that in the NFL that much unless you have a great offensive line. And of course, he's playing at Bama. He does a pretty good offensive line just because the way they recruit. Yeah. So he does do some big play hunting, and sometimes that can lead to some interceptions and things like that. Him making a mistake. So I really feel like that's a situation where you could see him have a little bit of issues, but other than that, man, he is pretty clean film. It's just more he scares me just because of the starts he has, and if he came back next year, does he regress and things like that? It's a little scares me because to me, in my opinion, if Carson Beck came out after 2023, how high does he go? And now we all know that he shouldn't go that high, right? That's why that scares me a little bit about Ty Simpson.
Jake, how about you and Ty Simpson?
The best operational quarterback in this class right now. Truly, from a full operational standpoint, he has it over everybody else. He clears everybody else at the moment, simply because week to week, it's setting protections. It's understanding what's happening defensively, pre-snap and post-snap. I think he does a tremendous job. Marcus brought up, the cover 2 hole shots. I watched the Georgia game yesterday back. They tried to trap 2 on the front side of his read, and he saw it immediately and threw the go route. It is blink of an eye post-snap processing stuff, which I just don't think right now, to me, anyone else has that at his level in this class. And that is, I think, what's really exciting and maybe what can sort of bring you out of the concern of the 1 year start, 1 year starter thing a little bit, where it's he's not doing the 1 year starter stuff of I'm scrambling around, I'm making these insane plays right out of structure, and then when you look at me in structure, what's going on? And there is a little bit of that, and I think maybe eases the concern. I still think it's fair to take that to tack that on there of a concern of a 1 year starter, but it just feels like from him, it's layering throws, it's making the subtle adjustments, navigating the pocket that you just don't see from everybody else. Where it happened yesterday, where he is navigating the pocket, right? He's buying time and making all these subtle adjustments, feeling where the pressure is coming from. And then you watch his opponent on the other side in the red zone run right into a sack because he doesn't know where the defender is. And literally that was the only place he couldn't go. And so it's just Simpson from a navigational standpoint, just anticipatory throws, precision, right? All of that, especially deep down the field. You watch the Georgia game, he hit 2 of them, right off the bat, essentially that were dropped, where it's he's reading this out really nicely post snap, and guys aren't making plays. Now, I do think the big game hunting thing for sure. They do that 5-step drop. They sprint him out a little bit for these deep shots where it's like, okay, you trust your protection, totally fine. And it's and he might be a QB where, you go to a team and you go, okay, yeah, we can do the 5-step and the 7-step stuff and just have, an extra guy or two in on protection because we know that Simpson's going to be able to read this out and take care of the football, which is another thing he does really, really well. Now, there is some times where he starts scrambling and he starts running, like you see him start to scramble out to the right, and sometimes that accuracy suffers a little bit when he isn't on time with that. But there are other times where he is outside the pocket and you watch him reset and just fire that thing.
I love that.
It is really, really cool to watch. Yes, it's super fun to watch these guys throw from the odd positions and arm angles. But also, it's really cool when a guy says, no, I know myself. I know I don't need to be doing that. Let me reset and just fire it from under platform that feels comfortable. And he does a tremendous job of that. So, yeah, the whole operation, he does a great job. I don't think there's too much defensively that is going to kind of rattle him at this point. He's got the poise to deliver, take hits when necessary, right, when the pressure's coming, all of that. I think the only thing with Simpson for me that is concerning outside of the first-year starter stuff is sometimes there are like weird mechanical things that kind of pop up where he's not doing full rotations when he's throwing, and you see him bounce like a bubble screen, or he sails something because he's not within himself mechanically that he should be, where it's not full rotation. You think he's just trying to push it through the shoulders only a little bit. And that gets him into some trouble where it's kind of like, oh, that was weird. Like you get it like that'll pop up for 1 or 2 plays and you go, okay, that's odd. I don't know why he's just not, doing everything mechanically, like robotically, like he can do. So that might be a concern for me of like, but I do think that's something where you watch him throw accurately to every level and you go, okay, the QB coach just has to say, all right, what's going on with, this sample size of throws? Let's quickly fix that. Let's get that out of your system, and we're full go. So, like, I feel like right now for me, like, it's going to be hard to have anybody ahead of Simpson at this point just because of what he does operationally. And, like, it's really fun to have, these QBs that have rocket ships attached to the right shoulder and can scramble around and make some plays. But I think what's different is at some point, you're going to have to make a decision and read things out in under 3 seconds. And right now, with a muddied pocket, with pressure coming, all of that, like, I'm taking Simpson right now over the class in terms of, like, to handle that type of situation.
Okay, so a couple things on Ty Simpson. He's a redshirt junior.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to turn 23 years old in December. So he has another year of eligibility. So, Marcus, I think you invoked Carson Beck, where if we were to talk about Carson Beck 2023, people were talking about Carson Beck off of 1 year as a first-round talent. Are we doing the same thing with Ty Simpson?
Yeah, because he is a first-round talent. I mean, it's really unquestionable on film. Like when I watch this film, like I agree with everything Jake's saying. Like to me, he it's not the end of the process yet, and nobody has finalized their things, but I mean, he's the front runner for QB1, in my opinion, just based off film. I mean, there's not a lot that he does bad, right? And there's a lot you can work with that I really like from how quarterbacks play, because, I'm really big on toughness at this point. When a lot of quarterbacks, you see a lot of quarterbacks come out these days and they don't want to take hits. And, and that's a big thing in the NFL. I mean, you're going to take a hit throwing a dig route sometimes. And will you stay in there? And are you willing to take those throws? Are you willing to take that hit and throw it downfield? Like that, it's going to happen. I mean, you're playing, you're playing Quentin Williams, you're playing Jalen Carter's. Those guys get to beat somebody and they might hit you. You can't just start running away from it. You got to throw the ball. You know what I mean? And I think that's what he does. That's something I like from him, and just that toughness and that grit that he has. It just scares me because, a couple years ago, I did this when the Raiders were about to draft were planning on drafting a quarterback, but they all went the first 8 picks, technically, in 2024. They got Brock Bowers, which is fine. But when that happened, I did a study, and like, this quarterbacks under 1,000, over 1,000 dropbacks and under 1,000 dropbacks, and it was just not a good look. It was only, the only three good guys were Josh Allen, Kyler Murray, and C.J. Stroud. But Stroud still played 2 years. Kyler Murray, he only was a 1 year starter technically, and then and then Josh Allen just didn't throw the ball a lot. But everybody else kind of really just fell off. So that's why I kind of get nervous about it. But honestly, like, it wouldn't bother me. I mean, I would just take the chance on him because it's his film is so good. You can't sometimes, those things can happen, and you've got to look at it and you got like, okay, we might be playing with fire here, we might be going against history, but this film is really good, and we can work with this. It's not like you're right, Jake, it's not like it's Zach Allen where you just throwing 50 yards in the field and things like that, and his offensive line, like 4 of them get drafted, and he's just sitting back there, eating chips, throwing the football. It is a whole lot different with that. So I agree with that. And that's the thing. So it does make me a little nervous, but if I was to take a chance on a quarterback, just like if I had to take a chance on C.J. Stroud with the same thing, I would do it.
Okay. Do we care if Simpson goes back to school and comes out as a 24-year-old? Like, Marcus, I know that the name of your podcast is Tape Don't Lie. Are you worried about the age of 24, or are you worried about the tape more?
I'm tape. I'm a tape guy. So I think I don't think it'll make a difference for him, but I think it might be the reason why he comes out regardless, because he is 23. So I think that's going to play a factor into it, because NFL teams might push that against him, right? They might put that against him, that he's a lot older and things like that. So since he isn't an older player, and if he gets the evals that he likes, he might come out just because of that. So I think that's going to play a factor in his decision making too, because Dante Moore. I think Dante Moore is not even 21 yet. I believe so. I think he's a younger player, isn't he? Yeah. So he has more of a reason to come back. Same thing with like Sellers. So I think Simpson has more. I would say reasons to come out because he is an older player.
Okay, Jake, does the age influence your draft evaluation at quarterback?
Probably not, because if he's really, really good, he's playing until he's like, 37, 38. Like, we're not. Whereas I think, like, if a running back's 24, you're kind of like, well, no, why would I do that? Like, by the end of the first contract, we're not doing it. Like, so I do think with QB, it's a little different, right, than a lot of other positions, where it's like we see a lot more of this past 30 with the really good ones than we do like other positions. So that probably won't concern me much. And then, if he's as good as he is this year, like next year, and he comes out 24, and we're having, like, again, some of the guys recently that have come out that are older guys, right? Nix, Daniels, right? Ward, obviously struggling a little bit down there. Just a lovely operation in Tennessee. But like some of these guys, I think if he gets to, a good operation, like, I think they're going to be in great shape with him even at 24. Like, I don't think, that's going to dissuade me, because especially what Marcus said, like, the film doesn't lie. Like, his operation is at quarterback right now is so good. Like, it's just it's very, very clean. It's just, it looks like a player who is in his third year as a starter, where it's just like, no picture changes from Georgia or Tennessee or Vandy or LSU are like rattling me too much. It's just kind of like, I've seen this before. No problem. I'll go here. Like, no problem. I know what this read is. Like, it just feels like he is extremely, extremely clean. And I think that's where I think we may kind of have like floor and ceiling a little bit confused, as like athletically you can set the floor, but like when the athlete of Josh Allen hit his ceiling, it's because he's seeing everything. Mm-hmm. And everything slowed down for him. And it's just like, it took him to the next level. And that's where I feel like Simpson is already, where it's like, no, he's seen a lot. And he just pre-snap, post-snap, all of that, just the poise, all of that is just so, so good right now.
Okay, so a couple comments. So, Anthony, I see your comments here. So, I think if Simpson's in the draft class, he doesn't get out of the top 5. No. And he may not even get out of the top 3. Right? Between the Raiders the Jets, and who's the third team? Oh, and the Saints.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I can't see him dropping by any of those three teams. I know Marcus has told me I had the Raiders too low on my simulator at one point, or he said I had the wrong pick. But we still have a half a season to see if Marcus was right or I'm right. And we'll leave it at that.
All right.
The last quarterback of the day, Fernando Mendoza from Indiana. So I'm going to introduce him a little bit. Fernando Mendoza does have another year of eligibility left. However, the Indiana backup quarterback is Fernando Mendoza's younger brother. So he's probably going to be in this draft because A, he's going to be drafted high, and B, he wants to let his brother start at Indiana. And if you need a data point, because it confused my girlfriend because we were watching the Indiana game yesterday, one Mendoza replaced another. And that because there were two of them that, it's the same name on the back of the jersey with two different numbers. That does cause for some confusion. But Jake, what do you have on Fernando Mendoza?
Yeah, I think he has got a lot of. I think he is probably the closest to Simpson of these guys at this juncture, where it's when you look at what Mendoza does extremely well. I think probably the first thing that jumps out, right, is mechanics, accuracy, right? The some of the placement on some of these throws is really impressive, right? You look at even yesterday, kind of the Penn State final drive where it's, that middle field throw against the Tampa coverage was really, really good. Then he throws up one high that the receiver comes down with, and then throwing it up high in the red zone for the game winner. Like some of the placement stuff, he just gives his receivers such a great chance to come down with the football based on where he's throwing it. And I think that he's still somebody who I think is really rigid mechanically, which really helps him in a lot of the quick game stuff as well. Pre-snap, I think that again, operation's really good pre-snap with him, where he is really attuned to like, all right, what's this defensive call? Do I have to change protection? Do I see this blitzer? Okay, how does my picture change when I see this guy's creeping in like he's a blitzer? So like the pre-snap picture understanding for him is really good, and he is another guy where the poise, the stand and deliver, the take hits when he makes throws. Like there was a great throw against Iowa where he gets just absolutely drilled right as he's letting go of the football, and just to stand in there and make those tough throws is really awesome for him. I think he does pretty well in terms of anticipatory throws, and I think he does. I think he's fine enough in terms of how he can navigate the pocket a little bit in terms of making some adjustments when there's quick pressure, especially around the edge. So I do think he has got that in him, and obviously the poise on the throw. Yesterday as the game's winding down, defenders, I think 2 defenders hit him as he's making that throw. Like that stuff is really, really good to see from him. I think the only thing I have with Mendoza is when the rhythm gets a little off and when defenses show him some things that he isn't as comfortable with. Like I think that's where I think the final drive versus what happened the couple of drives before is like people are going to point to the final drive, which is totally fine. Like that's nails. You go make plays. But it seemed like Penn State on that final drive yesterday got into cover 3, got into like 3 deep Tampa. They weren't bringing pressure. They weren't really changing the picture a lot for him on that final drive. He made the seam throw against the cover 3, which is again, kudos to him for making the quick read, understanding where I got to go with this football. That's awesome. Throw the comebacker against the cover 3. That's usually going to be there, right? And so a lot of that, it felt like, okay, Penn State was just giving him the rhythm back, and he was just, okay, cool, I'll just take advantage of that, right? Whereas it felt like when Penn State brought pressure and when some things changed a little bit post-snap on him, where you can see his feet and his eyes start to panic and dart around, where it just felt like he wasn't composed in a lot of that. Like again, when he sees the pressure and when he understands where it's coming from, he has no problem standing and delivering because he knows where the pressure's coming from. He knows what he's going to see, and he knows what throw he has to make. when the picture changes post snap is when I have the biggest concern for Mendoza, where he kind of can drift, he can, get away from pressure rather than standing in. So some of that, and again, I think the biggest thing with the QB when you're, even because especially when you don't have the full picture right on the film, when you're trying to watch the stuff live, I think just watch the eyes, the helmet, and watch the feet.
Yeah,
I think it tells you a lot of how comfortably they're processing information. Because when you start to see everything kind of get a little bit out of whack with the footwork and the eyes and everything's darting around, you see panic set in. And it felt like Penn State got him a little bit yesterday because of that. And I'm not sure why they didn't continue to do that on the final drive. That was a little confusing, but that's kind of where I think my biggest concern with Mendoza is right now, is when everything changes post-snap, does he have, the processing skill, the quick decision-making to handle some of that? Because it felt like that was a little bit of a wart that showed up yesterday.
Marcus, where are you on Fernando Mendoza right now?
Honestly, I literally agree with almost everything that Jake was saying. Because I like what I like from Mendoza is a dog. I could already tell that. He's a dog, and he's gonna make some plays late in games where you really need him. And like he doesn't get like rattled by his mistakes, right? Some of the interceptions that he threw, like the one against Oregon, and he came right back, things like that. That's why you like that at a quarterback. Doesn't get rattled by his own mistakes. It doesn't get in his head. When he's taking hits, he doesn't stop trying to, start fading away and doing, different things when he's taking those hits. And he anticipates really well to outside, outside the numbers. They don't make too many throws in the middle of the field or in the offense that he runs, because it's very RPO based, right? It's the offense that they're running is very RPO, quick, a lot of quick throws, and he's really accurate in a lot of these passes, and he makes good decisions in the offense. And I think he's a little bit more athletic than people give a little credit for too. I think he can run the football and run and get yards when he needs to. And sometimes maybe the arm strength too, maybe on some of the deeper passes, maybe he can float a little bit, but he has enough drive on the football. I've seen him drive the football plenty of times, especially like the throw you're talking about with Iowa. That's not normal for him to get hit and drive that ball 25 yards like that. That's not normal. So so it's really hard to kind of talk about the arm strength. I think that's probably something mechanically that he's got to fix to be able to get more velocity and air into that football. I think that's something he can fix. I think that's probably a mechanical issue. If you have that arm strength that we see at one point, but then you can't hit that deep ball when you really need to, that's probably something mechanical. So I think you can probably get that fixed where you can fix that situation. But I agree with Jake totally. To me, he's played two NFL style offenses. He's played Iowa. He's played Penn State so far. They play a lot of NFL style things. They mix it up. That's why a lot of these third guys get drafted, and they actually play pretty well in the NFL for Penn State. And he's got another one coming up, which is a real one, which is Ohio State, which is I really want to see him play them. I know Patricia's going to throw the kitchen sink at him, it's right. And I really want to see that, because I agree with you. Like, I feel like if he has the picture change, or if he has constant pressure, like consistent pressure, like Iowa was just coming at him over and over again, and he was hanging in there. But then that one time he made a terrible mistake because he's just trying to get rid of the football. He does a lot of things where he did against Oregon too a little bit, where he kind of will try to fade away from the pressure, right? Which will work out in certain instances, but other instances it's a pick six if you don't get it there, right? Yeah. And I think changing the picture on him, throwing a lot of pressure at him, like throwing some like it looks like something, and then you throw a cover zero look on him. Is he going to be able to see that quick enough? Or is he going to try to make a play, right? Because it's not that he's scared or anything. Like, it's not like he's like running away from the pressure. It's more like, oh, I got to make a play because I got coverage zero now or something like that. I got to do this. I got to do that. And it's not like what you see from Simpson, where it's like if the picture changes, Simpson goes right to where the picture is changing, right? He's going right to that read, no matter what they're running, right? And it might, a little bit of that might be on the offense that they're running, because it really isn't like a 1-2-3-4 offense. It really feels like a more college style offense. The RPO, I take the ball, I tuck it, I'm going here type of offense. And maybe that looks different in the NFL, which, is a little bit of a struggle too when we're evaluating these guys. That maybe he runs his offense really well. Maybe he'll go in the NFL, he'll run that offense really well, right? But that still is a concern, because that's what the NFL is going to do to you. The NFL is not going to do a lot of the things you're seeing against some of these other teams, like when it's playing Illinois, where Illinois really didn't try to do anything with him. He just picked them apart really easily, right? But when he played Iowa, and then you saw it and get this game against Penn State, and you saw a little bit against Oregon too, is when they're attacking him and they're getting pressure on him a lot, he just starts to, his way of getting rattled, in my opinion, is trying to make the extra play, trying to make a play that he shouldn't, which, to be honest, is better than the other type of rattle. So I do like Mendoza a lot, though, but I agree with what Jake was saying. It's when the picture changes, and can he handle NFL coverages? That's going to be my question a little bit with him.
Yeah, I do think your point, though, about like the bounce back stuff is really important too, where it's like he's not down on himself at all about the pick. He's like, all right, no, we're on to the next drive. We're good. Like that to me is at least showing like the resiliency, where some guys just, it kind of unravels after that first pick. And like, he is not somebody who is unraveling per se because of one decision, right? Like that is a really good sign for sure for a player like him.
That's actually a good point, because we talk about short memory with cornerbacks, but we should also talk about it on the other side of the ball with quarterbacks, right? So they got me once, but I have to come back, right? My team is still in the game. So that's a great point. So one of my questions is to kind of summarize the 4 players that we talked about today is the supporting cast. So just a little bit of data. Oregon, they're going to have 4 offensive linemen in this NFL draft, and all 4 may go before the end of round 5, right? And if you need to know who those offensive linemen are, go to the podcast channel, flip on the offensive line playlist. You'll learn about them. Indiana, on the other hand, there's no offensive lineman. Like, we've covered one, but he's probably going back to school, right? So younger offensive line. But there's 3 wide receivers and a running back at Indiana that are very draftable.
Yeah.
Right? Whereas if we look at Alabama, we're not talking about too many Alabama offensive linemen. I think we do have 1 or 2 on the list, but they're not high. There are not a lot of Alabama wide receivers that we're talking about. I think we're talking about 1 Alabama running back in this draft class. So if you guys had to look, and then Cole Payton does have a wide receiver that is going to get drafted. His name is Bryce Lance. Lower level of competition, but still. So if you have to, like Marcus, tape don't lie. If you have to look at somebody's supporting cast, are you able to isolate the quarterback from the supporting cast, or do you think it's all part of the evaluation?
I would say it is a part of the evaluation, the supporting cast, because not everybody can take advantage of a great supporting cast either. So I think that it's important to take into account, but it does play a factor into it, like what your supporting cast is. For Dante Moore, yeah, he has a great offensive line, but I don't know about like how much his dominant his receivers are. When you watch him, I think a lot of that is just him knowing where to go with the football. And yeah, he has the offensive line, and maybe and when he gets to the NFL, maybe he doesn't have that same offensive line. But I still think when he's under pressure, it doesn't look that bad where he's like making huge mistakes and he's just not handling pressure at all. And he has the legs too, so I think he can make up for it with it off if he has a little bit of struggles off his line there. I would say, even though you're talking about like a lot of those Alabama linemen aren't getting drafted, I still think the Ty Simpson has Ryan Williams. You know what I mean? Like he still has him, right? It's just, right. Yeah, and he can make some plays. Honestly, I think the other receiver that I don't know how high who he is. I think number 5. I think he's a pretty good player too. When I was watching him on film. So, maybe those guys aren't coming out like this year, but I still think there's some good players he has around him too. But, it's hard. It's hard to do that in college football because, if they're at a good school, they're going to have good players around them. So it's like, sometimes it's harder to be like, oh, it's a supporting cast around them, Yeah. But to me in the NFL, if you're not putting a good supporting cast around your quarterback, You're a Bills fan, Jim. The Bills are like, hey, we don't really want you to have the best wide receivers right now. You're gonna get it done for us, Josh, no matter what. We're just gonna run the ball, and then Josh, you're gonna run and just do whatever you can because you're Superman. So now they're having him play Superman a little bit with like the wide receiver core that he has, and you don't want that. You want your guy to be comfortable. He needs a stud. I don't care how good he is, right? You're gonna need some studs out there. So I think, when I look at supporting cast and separating it, it's hard for me to do because I want you to have a great supporting cast in the NFL. I want you to have a great offensive line. I want you to have some good wide receivers that can get open consistently, and I want you to have a good running back. All those things help. You don't want these guys to be Superman all the time. And you can see that a little bit with the Chargers and Justin Herbert. They have him play Superman all the time, and he has Lavin Conkey and stuff like that. But he's working with like Quentin Johnson and some of those guys who took a lot of time to develop, and he gets knocked down for it. But he's having to go out there and play Superman, and we don't want that. We want your quarterback to be comfortable with a good supporting cast. So I'm always that type of guy where I know like the 80s and 90s, you get the whole like lift the player up, that type of thing. I don't think that's as a thing as much where you could just throw John Elway in there and Elway can just throw to anybody. That's not going to happen these days. So that's kind of how I feel about a supporting cast.
Jake, where are you on the supporting casts of the 4 quarterbacks we discussed today?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think it's really nice when you can have that, right? Like it's really cool to see Julian Sand throwing to 2 first-round picks. One of them may be one of the best receiver prospects we've ever seen. But at the same time, like if you have a Ryan Williams, right, like on your team, like Simpson does, who's a tremendous deep threat who can get down the field in an instant, right? If you can't get him the ball, that to me is telling me, okay, we have a deep accuracy issue. Whereas I feel like this year, there have been some underthrows with Simpson to Williams on a couple occasions, but Williams has also dropped the ball on some really impressive throws from Simpson down the field. So I feel like you can do a nice job isolating it. Like, okay, if I have a QB as a receiver who's really good with separation on timing routes and like really, really extremely gifted in terms of the through break transitions and how to set up, cornerbacks and how to find space, like, if he's good with all the timing stuff, like, is the QB on time with him? Like, you could see a lot of that, right? If the offensive line is good, that's great. So that means eventually teams are just going to bring pressure with maybe more than one that they can handle. How do you handle that, right? When an offensive lineman loses, what do you see from the QB? Like, is he someone who's extremely rattled immediately when he loses? Or do you see someone like Simpson who can navigate or knows when he has to completely exit, right, and roll out? Like, I feel like you can do a good job isolating it, but that's something where, like, if you're going through all that film, that's going to, the time that it takes to kind of isolate all that, it will certainly take more time. Definitely worth it, though. So I do think, yeah, if you have the supporting cast thing, where it's like, yeah, is he being lifted up? Like, there are times where I do think it is fair to kind of look at it, the whole picture, and you can kind of see the QB kind of being lifted, where it's like, okay, they're giving him easy outlets here, they're giving him all this, and like, and maybe he's not, doing as much. Whereas I feel like, yeah, you can, if you do enough work on it and time on it, I feel like you can do a pretty good job isolating it. Yeah, the Indiana thing, just to circle back really quick, of like their offense, of like, yeah, there is some like if this then that with their offense a lot of times with the picture, where it's like that might not be like the coach and all the coaches and coordinators saying like Mendoza can't handle this. It's more of like, we as a unit want to, give our players, the immense confidence in doing these few things that we think can be successful at the collegiate level. Not necessarily going like, no, Mendoza can't handle this, so we're doing this. So that's the tricky part of like, we don't know exactly what the Indiana coaches are saying with how the offense is structured. Of like, they could be saying, yeah, Mendoza, we trust him to do A, B, and C, and we're going to keep the picture A, B, and C offensively. Or it's just kind of like, no, we don't need to be ridiculously complex in our approach with all these guys. Like, we know it can work against this, and this that a lot of teams we're seeing are going to run. We could tweak things from there, but this is kind of the meat and potatoes of what we're going to do, because we know we can get away with it. That to me is maybe the trickiest part rather than the supporting cast. It's just kind of like, what are coaches and coordinators and all that making decisions on to for the offense of like how it's structured. That would be nice to know.
Yeah.
As well as all the interviews pre-draft. That'd be great. Mm-hmm. I think we'd have a better understanding of it all if we had that.
So, Jake, out of the 4 quarterbacks we discussed today, which player could move the needle the most for you in the remaining 4 weeks of the college football regular season and whatever comes after the college football regular season?
I think move the needle most would definitely be Payton, just because I think he is, probably several steps behind these guys at the moment, where it's like you just see more game reps of him, doing things better on an operational standpoint, accuracy standpoint, mechanics standpoint, like all of that. He feels like he has the most room to run of all these guys. As far as I will say, I think move the needle is in terms of like one specific game. I think Marcus hit it on the head. Mendoza and Indiana against Ohio State in the Big Ten Championship is perhaps maybe the biggest needle mover of any of the top 3 guys, right, that we're going to see at this point. Like, obviously, it'd be great to see Simpson play Ohio State. That'd be really cool. It'd be great to see Moore and Oregon play Ohio State. But as far as the way it looks right now, I think we're getting that game in I think early December, right? Yeah, early December. So that's probably the one game that would move the needle most in terms of the top guys. So
okay. So Marcus, which player could move their needle the most? And then do you also agree that the Ohio State Indiana game is really going to be your best measuring stick of Fernando Mendoza?
Yeah. I mean, I agree with Jake. Payton, just because Payton has the most room to grow out of all these guys. I mean, he has the most room to grow. People don't know who he is. I think a lot of people know who these other guys are, right? You start talking about Cole Payton to somebody, they look at you like you're crazy. So I think he has the most room to grow. So it seems like it's easy for him to do that. But yeah, that game for Mendoza against Ohio State is going to be huge for him as a prospect. If he goes out there and he throws like 3 interceptions and he struggles against those guys, he kind of looks like Arch Manning looked week 1. I think people are going to start having some talk about, what is he, yada, yada. Can he read NFL defenses? What if they do, they're going to have those conversations when we start nitpicking these players later on, right? People are going to bring up that game, the whole process for the 3 months that we have to talk about it, right? So it's going to be that's a huge game for him. It is. Like, it's if he goes out there and he balls and he plays really well, man, he's going to really solidify himself as probably maybe QB1, right? For a lot of people in a lot of people's eyes. So it's gonna be an exciting game for him. But that's probably gonna be the huge game for him too as well. But I'll also say that Ty Simpson still has a little bit of chance to kind of be that number 1 guy too, if he could finish the season with the way Alabama's playing and maybe even like win the national championship and go and upset Ohio State too, right? Ohio State's defense is crazy. So it's gonna be a lot of factors for a lot of these people. They're nuts over there. So.
It helps when you have those 2 linebackers and you can just pretty much do whatever the heck you want with those guys. Like, hey, we're going to just do a coffee house stunt, which quarterbacks probably haven't seen at this level with Reese and Styles. Like, that's just kind of unfair.
Yeah,
but it's cool though. That's what's going to be super fun about this. But yeah, if Simpson goes and like outscores, Reed and Texas A&M in that title game, and like he wins, a track meet, like 100%, like people are going to value that, that win plenty. And then they will just continue to say everything's heightened from there. And I think that's what's really cool about this 12-team playoff that we got going on now is, one, because Oregon got that done yesterday, we're probably seeing them. Because you didn't always, with the 4-team, we didn't get to see all the QBs get into these games. It was kind of like, oh, their team isn't great, so and they're a 2-loss team, so we're not going to see them. That's what's really cool about this. We're going to get to see those 3, most likely, barring some crazy collapse or anything, in the playoff against really good teams. And that's to me is probably the most exciting part of why they've expanded this. And we're going to get these QBs on that level. There's nobody who's on a 5-loss team getting left behind or anything like that.
Yeah.
And to your point, Jake, I actually think Michael Penix being drafted as high as he did is likely a result of Penix playing well in the college football playoff. I don't know that Penix would have been drafted as high if he wasn't playing in the playoffs. And
to CJ Stroud, it was kind of like, all right,
Yeah.
Can CJ Stroud play out of structure? And then they saw the George game. It's like, oh, okay, yeah. When things break down, like he goes Super Saiyan at times and just carve up George's defense, which I think was really cool to see as well.
Mm-hmm.
Well, why don't we pause for podcaster identification? If this is your first time tuning in, Marcus and Jake, to the best of my knowledge, have not met or podcasted before. This is the luxury of having 110 draft professors. You two did awesome today. Jake, do you want to let everybody know about all of your other football content?
Yeah, if you follow me at Jake NFL Draft on Twitter, the links will be there. Got a YouTube channel that does some NFL rookie NFL draft breakdown stuff, which is a lot of fun. Do some Packers as well on a separate channel you can find there, and then Substack's wrapping up. Going to do a lot of prospect stuff over there because YouTube doesn't like it when you do prospect stuff sometimes, especially a conference down south. They don't like it. So Substack will have some of those. But yeah, gonna ramp up a lot. Probably gonna take some of what we talked about and write something up as well about these QBs. I think it's, again, obviously the position that is kind of entangled to the most in terms of playing football. So I think that's what's really fun about it. And yeah, this was awesome. It's got me fired up for Sunday mornings going forward.
Yeah.
This is apparently a really good time slot. But Marcus, would you like to introduce yourself to everybody and let them know about Tape Don't Lie and everything else that you do?
Yeah. So I do mostly Raiders film channel called Tape Don't Lie. And we break down the Raiders every single week, which is torture at this point. It feels like I've been tortured for the last couple of years, but started off great in 2020, and then like when it's out now, it's getting torturous, but it's fine. And I built it up, so it's pretty good. And then I do some writing for silverandblackpride.com as well. And, so those are two main things I do. I run that channel. We do about 4 or 5 shows a week. So at this point, it's hectic, but I love talking quarterbacks and talking draft stuff too. So as well, I do like some quarterback rankings every year. I'll do like a summer watch of every single NFL quarterback, and I rank them myself, just all based on film, not based on like opinions or anything like that. I just go straight off what the film tells me, and I grade them and I rank them that way. So I do that too. So I love doing quarterback stuff. So it's a passion of mine. So yeah, this just telling me to go watch quarterbacks, I get excited. I mean, I don't care who it is. I don't care if it's like a 7th round guy. I get excited just because I like doing that. I like watching that position and learning about it. And I like constantly learning different things about it. I never feel like I'm an expert at it. It's something that you never hear me like I'm a quarterback guru. Like you never hear that from me or anything like that. It's I'm always learning about the positions and what am I make mistakes if this guy didn't make it. What am I looking at? I always try to change and get better there. So something I definitely am passionate about is the quarterback position. But that's me. That's what I do. A lot of film stuff and. So if you're a Raiders fan and you're watching this, check this out. Go to Tape Don't Lie, and we do a lot of draft stuff there. So I'll be covering a lot of quarterbacks, and I have memberships where I do full breakdowns of full games. I already got. I thought Sellers was coming out, so I got some Sellers up there. I got a whole Dante Moore game. I got a whole Fernando Mendoza game up there. So go ahead, check those out too.
Well, welcome to Draft Professor, everybody. My name's Jim. If this is the first time that you have tuned into our podcast, we are here every day, twice a day. So Monday through Friday at 7 p.m. and 9 p.m. Eastern. We have one podcast Saturday mornings, and then this was our second podcast today on Sunday. While NFL games are going on, this podcast stays at 10:30 a.m. Eastern time. And then once we hit Valentine's Day, there will be a Sunday night podcast. So this will move a little bit later. But what you get right now at Draft Professor are positional breakdowns. So every podcast is going to focus on a position, and we will document the players ahead of the podcast. So, for example, there was a comment in the chat about Lenora Sellers. Well, we decided we were only going to do 4 quarterbacks today. Sellers wasn't one of the 4. So not everybody at this point of the draft process has watched every player. So we try to limit we're going to talk about these 8 or these 12 players so that people can watch the tape. So Marcus and Jake can watch the tape and give their opinions. But if you want opinions on the players in the draft, go to Draft Professor at NFL Draft Fanatic on YouTube. There is a playlist for every position. And you can just go and, if you want to learn about tight ends, there's a tight end playlist, and we've evaluated all the tight ends that we think will be drafted in rounds 1 through 5. We're undergoing that with every other position group. Tight end and running backs are the only 2 positions that have finished. We will be finishing safeties, wide receivers, and corners in short time. There are more offensive line and defensive linemen to deal with, so those positions will take a little bit longer. But by the end of December, we will have what we think every player that we have graded in rounds 1 through 5 will have been podcasted on at least once, and most of them will have been podcasted on twice. So you'll be able to hear, you can hear Jake and Marcus doing these quarterbacks. There's another quarterback show on Monday. If you want to hear about Cole Payton, you can hear 3 other people breaking down Cole Payton, right? So you can hear multiple opinions. Draft Professor is not about one opinion. It's about a forum where multiple people can give their opinions. So again, if this is your first podcast that you have tuned into, give a subscribe on YouTube and you'll be notified whenever we go live. With that being said, for Marcus, Jake, myself, for the 110 people at the Draft Professor, thank you so much for tuning in. Enjoy your Sunday of football, and we will be back again next Sunday, 10:30 Eastern, and we'll have a different topic related to the NFL draft. So thank you so much, everybody, and enjoy your day of football.